Black Friday is on the way. Cringe, but then also kind of excited because the little magpie in me loves to find little trinkets. Trinkets for everybody. Ah! But it can't be that way. There is a YouTuber that I love. If you watch this channel a lot, you'll already know that I really love Hannah Louise Poston's videos. She did a whole No Buy Year series and she talks a lot about conscious consumption. And she did a video a few months ago discussing all the reasons she didn't buy things. And since I've recently done a gift guide video talking about all the things I'm really glad that I did buy, I thought that it might be useful to have a cozy little chat about all the things I didn't buy this year. I actually made a list just off the top of my head because these are the silly little objects that occupy my brain and are still sitting there somewhere in my head. I think we get the idea that just because we make the decision not to buy something, the idea of it instantly goes away, and it hasn't been the case for me with these items, but I do stand by the reasons I didn't buy them. And I think thinking as much about the things we don't buy as the things we do buy can be really helpful when we try to sort out our psyche and which parts of our brains actually would garner a lot of joy and logically would use those things, and the other part of our brain that wants something new and shiny but isn't actually applying logic. So I hope these examples help you. Of course, they're all utterly ridiculous. Because of a lot of the societies we've grown up in, we have been trained to be consumers, and it is a lifelong project to train yourself out of that. But here are some things that I hope will help you think more about the things that you may or may not buy this Black Friday, because there are going to be some good choices, but there might be some bad choices, and I hope this helps you sort those out in your head. The first thing is something that's admittedly a little out of my price range anyway, and I have no business buying, but it is also something that I return to throughout the year semi-regularly and saved as a tab on my desktop, which you shouldn't do. Don't do that. It is this anthropology chair, which it just lives rent-free in my head, and I haven't bought it for several reasons. One, we already own two very nice IKEA armchairs that saw me through 6 or 7 lockdowns, and for that I feel like I spiritually owe them a place in this home. The reason I was so confident to buy those chairs is because so many other people have them, so I've sat for long periods of times in those chairs. I know that they're comfortable, whereas this is a chair that I can't sit in. Ultimately, it's a beautiful object, but they are also supposed to be functional, and there is nothing more devastating, we all know, than owning a chair that you don't want to sit in. So I can't try the chair. I don't know if it's comfortable. At this price, I don't think I want to know if it's comfortable. But what it did do is open up the possibility of maybe decorating our chairs. The idea of having a decadent chair like this, I think that we use chairs as a blank canvas and then we like hang pictures or get nice wallpaper, but the decoration on the actual chairs, it's beautiful. It's undeniably beautiful. And I wonder if it's something that if I get better at sewing and applique, I think this is applique. I've lost the ability to say that word. And apparently, maybe it comes with the ability to actually do the thing, then I'll maybe be able to say the word. Maybe if I get better at that kind of technique, I might be able to upcycle my own chairs to look like this. But ultimately, I decided that I just got excited by the idea of decorative chairs like this. And from that, I've learned that I do have a yearning for that. And I thank this listing on Anthropology for teaching me that lesson. But this won't be my chair, not today. The second thing is this specific coffee flavoured Lush perfume. I struggle as somebody who's trying to shop more consciously when a brand that I genuinely believe in and think, yeah, they're doing mostly the right things, if not a great example, at least lesser of the great evils. And when they make something that I really like, I find it harder to resist because the bar is so low for brands. And the fact that I actually don't hate a brand and they're making something that I love really does something fizzy in my brain. And I went to the Lush in Oxford Street, which is the big like flagship Lush shop. It's very like beautiful, luxurious, immersive, and they have a basement full of perfume where you can try all the perfumes. And I unfortunately apparently have a bit of a Tory taste, and I fell in love with the most expensive perfume in there. Of course I frickin' did. This whole world is on the struggle bus when it comes to ethical perfume, and this one just smelt like everything I want to be. Welcoming, layered, musky, rich. There is something really interesting about the tropes of perfume ads that really promise us over anything else, because like it's stupid that we have visual adverts for things that you ultimately can't experience apart from through your nose. More than any other adverts, they promise you who you are, or if somebody smells you, they'll think better of you. Do you know what I mean? Like you feel like you have to have a signature scent or something that's going to explain in advance of you speaking exactly who you are. And And if I had to take a guess at who my inner ego wants me to be, it would be this perfume. However, I didn't buy it. It is much more on the pricey end of what I have ever paid for perfume, but I know that they do source things like pretty ethically, so I understand parts of the price. However, for me, perfume isn't a category that I ever really buy in. It's not like a category of object that I genuinely get that excited about, unless I'm in a basement of a Lush on Oxford Street and I'm surrounded by it. It's not a interest that I think about. I don't actually, I think, have a very astute nose. I have smelt stuff before and then compared it with what other people are smelling, and I'm like, I can't smell that. I don't actually think I have an amazing sense of smell objectively. So while within this category I found my favorite thing, the category itself isn't really my favorite thing. So investing loads of time or resources into it, I don't think is going to lead to any ultimate joy. I also get desensitized to smells quite fast, so I can be really excited to be smelling something at the beginning of the day. By the end of the day, I can't smell it, even if it's still on me. I'm sure a lot of people are like that. It's kind of more of the performance of smelling well rather than actually smelling well, unless you do have an amazing sense of smell and you garner joy from it, in which case sniff on, have a great life, build a beautiful perfume collection. But for me, I already have a few silly perfume purchases that I've already made in the past that I really need to use up. And really, realistically, the only thing that I want to keep buying is this American Cream, very unfortunate title, Lush, solid perfume, which is £10, and I carry it everywhere around with me. I have 2 of them, and whenever I do feel the urge to wear perfume, or that I kind of notice that I smell a bit bad, I use this, and it fulfills all of the wants and needs that I like. And I'm using this at an incredibly slow rate, and this is probably less than 10 millilitres. So I don't know what I think I'd be doing with 50 or 80 millilitres of perfume. Like, it would never get used up in the time. Perfume also does expire, so that's a thing. I struggle to think of my toiletry cupboard as a fridge, but it kind of is when it comes to things expiring. So anyway, I didn't buy it, and that is why. The next 2 things on the list are actually both books, and books are a category that bring me a lot of joy, that I'm happy to invest my time and my energy into, and they're kind of my thing, you know. Inarguably, if everybody's got a thing, I guess books, if somebody said, what does Lena have a lot of and garners a lot of joy from, they'd all say books. So this is the opposite of the perfume category. And I'm also, part of my job is being a poet. That's inarguably part of my income, part of my role in this world is I have a poetry collection. I am a poet. So when I saw this beautiful edition of Jabberwocky, it's a penguin cloth-bound classic. The whole series is beautiful, but for some reason, this colour combination really speaks to me. The design is lovely, genuinely, and I really love that poem. It's one of my favourite poems, and I don't own like a proper physical copy of it. So all of this was speaking to me and being like, you should buy this book, Lena. But here's the thing, loving this book, and every time I see it in a bookshop, I always like manhandle it for too long. Loving this book has taught me that I really like this colour combination. That's what that's told me. The other thing is that I'm not really collecting beautiful classics. That's not part of my collection, really. I do have some when I see them and I really, really love them, and I think I'm going to genuinely read them. But I try and not keep beautiful editions of classics around that I wouldn't also reread. So I've got a Normal People edition that I really love, and I reread Normal People a lot, so that's fine. I've got an Emma edition that I know I'm going to love. I've got a 1984. But honestly, I really love the poem Jabberwocky, and I'm trying to learn it off by heart right now. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toads, as gyre and gimble in the wave. Oh, so where I want to actually pay homage to how much I love this poem is like, I want to just keep it in my brain. You know, I want to love it so much that I actually know it off by heart. I don't really want to keep rereading it on paper. And I know from several different sources that these specific editions are there to be looked at, to be seen, but to be handled. They're actually quite delicate, and a lot of my friends who have actually started reading the cloth-bound classics that they own have found that the vinyl stuff on the front comes off really, really easily. It doesn't stand up to wear at all, and that's devastating, but it's something I know about the quality of the product, and so knowing that before I've bought it seems silly. However, if there's a beautiful illustrated edition or a secondhand edition I see in a charity shop or something, I probably would go for it. But at this price, knowing what I feel about collecting beautiful classics and how I feel about this specific poem, it kind of has to be a no, and that's devastating because it's beautiful. But that's that. The other book that I really was on the fence about getting was Margaret Atwood's Burning Questions in hardback. I think this design is wonderful. It's calling to my little millennial heart. I think that Margaret Atwood is so interesting. I find so much of her writing fascinating, and I really liked handling this book in the shop. I thought it was a beautiful, big, chunky book, and it made me feel clever to think that I might read it, because it feels like a clever person's book. I imagined myself sitting down on a Sunday afternoon and poring over it for hours, writing really intelligent things in the annotations, looking at the edges and seeing how many things I tabbed up because I'm so clever. And I didn't buy it because I opened the front jacket, I looked at the contents of the book. It's a collection of essays for over like a decade period, and I realized a lot of the essays were about things I didn't know about, and not things that I could learn about from those essays, but reviews of books I hadn't read, reflections on theatre shows I'd never see. And knowing that, and knowing myself, and knowing that I wouldn't go and read those books afterwards, knowing that I might not know that much about the obituaries of the famous people that have died that she's talked about, I decided that I'd instead get the audiobook from my library. So I did that. And some of the essays I really loved. I thought they were really interesting. I wanted to highlight everything. Some of the essays that I read, I didn't care about because I didn't know anything about them. They're just her writings that she has been hired to do, or they're for specific things. They weren't originally written for general consumption. And again, for that reason, I was like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this whole book. And also I know in myself that I never spend Sunday afternoon sitting down for 3 or 4 hours and reading a book. I'm much more of a like finding my little moments of reading kind of reader. And I'm often reading, if I'm reading a physical book, I'm reading it in bed. We can't read physical books in bed anymore that are hardback and heavy because I have dropped the book on my head far too many times when I start falling asleep. It's literally a medical hazard. And also I often read on public transport if I can, if I don't feel sick, or I'm at least traveling with the book to somewhere else and then reading while I'm waiting for a train. And I need a paperback for that. My poor little back can't take it anymore. I'm not going to lug this book around. And the older I get, the more team paperback I am. So if I buy this book, I might buy it in paperback because I loved some of the essays and I think that I'd get a lot of use out of it. So while this cover is undeniably beautiful, I'm just going to let it be beautiful. It exists. Other people own it. I can look it up online if I want. I know it's there. And if they ever sell a poster of it, maybe I'd buy it. But in this format, in this moment, it's not for me. The next thing is a weird one. It's a kitchen appliance. It's an air fryer. Recently, I'm aware that people have owned air fryers for a long time, but recently in the last year or so, I've just been hearing everybody talk about them and rave about them. I think it's because of the energy crisis on, and it is, I think, cheaper to cook in an air fryer. But in the past, because I'm not a natural cook by any stretch of the imagination, I have fallen into the trap of buying kitchen appliances in the belief that it will make me a better or more efficient cook. Those kitchen appliances, I've sometimes cheaped out on the kind of one I'm getting, and it breaks really fast and then it has to go into landfill or have to try and recycle it somehow, and it's a nightmare. Or they're still sitting in the back of my cupboard because I ultimately don't use them that much and I don't care enough about cooking to get them out, use them, clean them, put them away. It's just my shits don't extend that far. And maybe that's embarrassing. Maybe I'm 33 and I should care a little bit more about cooking. I know the trap of buying a kitchen product before you really understand how you would use it or have any idea of what meals you might use it for, and then it just gathering dust. So if you are a pro air fryer person, let me know what your favorite recipes are and I'll see if they're things that I could even be bothered to do. And I would also like to try somebody else's air fryer. Maybe if I find out one of my friends is going away and they have an air fryer, be like, can I borrow your air fryer for a week? Which to me seems a little bit cheap or like cheeky, but it shouldn't be. That's the kind of society we need to start living in, where it's not weird to just ask to borrow something to decide whether you'd buy it or not. I'm thinking about maybe trying something like that, or even if I'm just round my brother's house or something, being like, can I try your air fryer? I just want to cook like one thing in it to see. I think that there basically needs to be more research and more thinking before I buy something like this, because even though they can be very affordable, I'm still aware of like the amount of waste I might create by getting one and then not using it. So that's why I'm not getting an air fryer. Come for me in the comments, air fryer lovers, because I know it's controversial to be air fryer hesitant in this economy, but here we are. I also don't really use my oven that much. So does that affect things? I don't use my oven that much to cook either. I'm a saucepan girly, to be honest. So I think that it probably is more efficient than heating up your oven, but just bear in mind that I don't really use my oven. Maybe to cook some Richmond meat-free sausages. That's the last time I can remember using it. Every time I've tried to bake something or make a pasta bake or something, it just ended up really sad. Like it's a very sad place for me, the oven. Organic basic bras. This bras, I think, sit in a very interesting liminal space for me between something that is a treat, a luxury, something nice but I don't need, and something kind of medicinal. Like, there's something medicinal about bras. They are something that a lot of people do need. I probably do need to wear a bra, not all the time, to be honest, but it is something that's more part of that world in my head than it is part of my fashion, part of my clothing. But I do probably need to get some better bras, but I'm also thinking about trying to learn how to make them. And I've been so deeply displeased with almost every bra I've ever tried. And the bras that I do like, they've been bought from small businesses that during the pandemic went out of business. So I can't even recommend them to you. But I've had a very frustrating time finding comfortable, breathable, long-lasting bras that are also ethical, and Organic Basics have been on my balls about this. The algorithm has worked out that is something that I want in my life, and it just doesn't leave me when I'm on Instagram, when I'm on Google. It just knows that this is like Organic Basics, according to my demographic stats, is my kryptonite, and it's following me everywhere. And I haven't given into it yet because I can't try them on. I'd like more positive reviews from people I know in my real life. And while I don't love the bras that I have, I do still have them. I haven't worn them out. There isn't objectively a reason for me to get more bras right now, especially because overshare, don't know. I don't wash them as much as the rest of my clothes. Like, they're not something I really sweat in that much. So they're just not something that wear that out that fast for me, especially because lots of days I don't even wear bras, and because I kind of relish the sewing challenge of trying to make my own bra at some point. Like, I know that there's some bras that are just a feat of architecture, but to put it bluntly, my boobs don't need that kind of architecture. I could do a basic bra and feel supported, I reckon, if I get a little bit better at sewing. So if I can wait like maybe 4 or 6 months till I feel more confident as a sewist, I think that maybe I could make something better than this. A bold claim. I might be crawling back to Organic Basics in a few months and buying a few bras from them because I'm like, it's too hard. I have to outsource this. I can't. But that's why. And I do still think about them every now and then and load them up and be like, oh, that looks really nice. But ultimately, knowing that struggle between something being, oh, well, you really need this, it's medicinal, and something that I just kind of think that I might want is a hard balance. And I know that it might apply to loads of different things for you, like the things where it's kind of like, oh, well, it's kind of something that I need, but it's also something that objectively I don't really need. You know, I don't know. I think that medicinal space is interesting. As a serial hobbyist who loves to take up new hobbies, I'm learning to trust the fact that I really love knitting and sewing, and I don't think that's going to go away. I don't think this is a flash in the pan. So I am sometimes happy to buy some of the gadgets that go along with it, knowing that I think it is going to be a long-term hobby for me, and that's fine. Fabric, on the other hand, is a bit of a Achilles heel for me. I have been trying to not stash stuff. I think when you take up a new hobby, you often watch and consume content from people who have had that hobby for a long time, and there is a tradition within the sewing community of having a stash, which means owning a lot of fabric that you haven't yet done anything with. And like, sometimes they're at a volume in that you can't do everything with. Maybe I'll make another video about stashes versus my book collection and the hypocrisy of me thinking that's silly. But there's this fabric, right? It's some Alice in Wonderland fabric by this brand called Rifle. They also designed, now this is why it crosses over with my book obsession. They also designed the book cover for this, but they made a matching fabric. I know, I'm sorry to tell you this because I know you're going to be tempted by it too, but it's so beautiful. I looked at it quite a lot. I think it's just such a nice fabric. It is a bit pricey, but I also can't for the life of me think what I would make with it. There's no piece of clothing that I can think, yeah, that'll be perfect in that fabric. And I've been resisting it because while it's a beautiful object, it was also supposed to be a tool, and I don't know what I would use that tool for. I worry that I'd buy it and then it would just sit around and make me feel guilty and look at me because I wasn't making anything with it. And I kind of think this falls into the category of things I'm just really glad exist. I think this is so beautiful. If they made greetings cards with it on, maybe I'd get those. But it's just one of those things that I'm like, this is one of the best fabrics on every fabric site that I go on. I'm always like, this is the most beautiful fabric. If I was just having a competition in my head for beauty, this would win. But does that mean that I have to buy it? No, it shouldn't. It doesn't. I won't. I might. I won't unless I think of a project that I really genuinely think, yes, that would fit that project. I would wear that fabric. It's again a fabric that I love to look at, but I can't really picture myself wearing. But it's just my kryptonite because it's beautiful colours. It matches a book cover. Oh, it's so good. And I think that relates to the final item in my list, which are these book themed bags. Look at them. They're little bookshops, but you carry them around on your shoulder. Oh, and it's got little details where it like you can see the little sign on the book. Oh, I think the bookshop door opens. Oh, they're by Vendula and they do vegan leather and they look incredible. I've been on the fence about this for a while and I'm not saying I'm never going to cave and save up and get one of these. But I also just think I am such a massive rucksack girly. If they sold the rucksack version of this in like a 20 litre, then we might be in business. But the way that my life is set up right now is that I work from home. I don't say I rarely leave the house, but I'll leave the house for specific errands or to go on day trips. I don't just leave the house casually to pop in somewhere. And because I don't have a workplace, if I'm going to work somewhere, I have to bring my laptop. So I've kind of started to realize that the idea of like the middle-sized handbag is kind of redundant in my life. Like I either have a tiny little bag that I'll just throw on because I'm going out to do a tiny little errand, or I have my like, I'm going to London for the day. I need 2 litres of water, a reusable coffee cup, 2 layers of jumpers and a waterproof coat and 2 books in case I read one book and then I finish it, I need to start another one, and maybe my sewing project so that I can do that on the train. It just becomes a whole brownie camp guide outing when I go out, I feel. And I've looked at the size of these bags and I'm like, I don't think I'd use it, but then maybe I just love it so much that I'd use it anyway and just deal. Or also carry a tote bag with me for my ridiculous weatherproof paraphernalia. That could also happen. But this is something where it's like, I am so glad that this exists. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a genius design. I think it's lovely. If somebody bought it for me as a present, I would probably love it forever and frame it or put it on a shelf. But as like an actual object, I am still thinking through the logistics of whether I would actually use any of these things. Or maybe I should just buy the little tiny purse version that would make me happy whenever I look at it. Maybe I should do that. But this is one of those examples that is like, are you just glad that it exists? Are you just impressed with the workmanship and the designership? Like maybe I wish this person who designed it had a public facing Patreon that I could subscribe to and be like, yes, keep making the book bags. I think you're doing a great job. I'm just not sure if one would actually fit into my life and how well it would wear as well. So yeah, we've pulled through a few themes in this video, I think. The promise, the ego trip of like, oh, this scent or this thing explains exactly who I am. My essence is captured in this perfume or in this bag or in this thing, and therefore I have to have it so people know who I am. That's a brain maze I often get stuck in, and I think sometimes it's warranted and it will make you feel more seen or more like you set yourself when you have it, and sometimes it's just, it could potentially be an empty promise that won't actually deliver that for you. Another one is just like the love of craftsmanship. I love art. I've always loved art. I started studying at university. I just like when people make cool, colourful, expressive things, and there's so few opportunities for us to just consume art without buying it in this little setup society thing we've got going on here, which I frankly think needs a bit of a rehaul. But because most of the ways we encounter art now is through shops, shopping, even virtual window shops, it's kind of starting to dawn on me that it's actually not bad for me to browse these sites because I am consuming what somebody has designed. I'm consuming art, but I don't then need to put it in my cart. Do you know what I mean? It's art, but you don't need to put it in your cart. There's also the idea of something fitting into your life and whether it actually will, and whether you need some more time to do research and gather data on whether something will fit into your life, like the air fryer or the handbag. These are things that I'm just not convinced I will use, and I might do more research and realize that actually, yeah, I should totally use that. But giving yourself more time to gather that information and not being pushed into a little cheeky Black Friday sale because if you don't get it now, it doesn't make sense to get it later. Ooh. I think sometimes I'm trying to talk to myself and be like, I would rather pay the £10 in 3 months that I would have saved this month and know that it's something that I'm definitely going to use and get joy from, rather than spending all of that money now, saving £10, but actually losing that money because it's not something I end up keeping or using very frequently, and it's most definitely a bit of a gamble. I would love to hear your brain farts about Black Friday. How do you feel about it? I think it makes sense when it's something you've been planning to get for a while and you know that that thing has been made and everybody's been compensated fairly and you can still get a discount on it. Great for everybody. But a lot of the time, I think it rushes us into decisions that actually should be slower decisions than we've been taught that they should be, if I'm making any sense at this point. Thank you so much for watching. This video wasn't sponsored because that would be really weird. But instead it's sponsored by the Gumption Club, who tip me per video to make sure these videos keep happening. Thank you so much to them for giving us a little bit of peace in this Black Friday world. If you like this video, you might like any of these videos really. This is a channel where we cover lots of things just in the same vibe, and the vibe is more fun, less hurting people. Yeah, I think that's the vibe. So if you like the sound of that and like a bit of glitter and gumption, do make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Frog Snog out. I can't. Okay, one more. Engage my core. I give up.